Welcome back to Blue Sky Flight. My name's Bob, and today is an exciting day. Making some good progress on the Aero. I've got the cover for the back seats all set up. Everything's been put on, all the brackets are there, so we're ready to go on that. I'll put that in, that'll just take a couple of minutes. Then pretty much the carpet is done, other than some minor alterations in the front. But what I get to do next, today we put some of the side panels in, and that'll make the airplane really start looking like it's taking shape, getting very close to being done with this thing and getting it back in the air. So pretty excited about that. So let me get back to work. As always, if you like what you're seeing on the channel, please give us a like, subscribe to the channel, watch all the content as we progress through getting this Aero restored and back in the air.
So before I put the side panels in, I just needed to take a few minutes to install the rear seat bench. So one of the first steps in that process is you've got to put your seat belts back down through that little hole in the middle of the board. And where they come out, they get joined together with a long bolt that goes through a bracket that's mounted to the back of the airplane there. I'll show it to you here in the video in just a moment. But yeah, it's a little bit tough to work down in there because there's not much room and some clearance for your hands there. But once you get it situated, it's not too bad.
In case you want to see it, just a bolt that goes through, holds both seat belts intact.
So I'll just tighten that down and secure that in place, and then you can set the board down where it belongs and work on installing that little trim strip in the back. So now to help me line up the board in the back, get all the holes lined up, I'm just using that same really small Phillips screwdriver that I've used on a variety of things during this project. Having something like that is a pretty invaluable tool, really, when you're trying to put things back together like this and get holes lined up. A small screwdriver or a small punch, something like that, just to kind of help you line up the holes. It comes in pretty handy. So once I get the holes lined up, just put this piece of trim on there, and then I'll start tightening the screws down on there. I did find out that because of the added thickness of this new carpet, as well as the fact that there's the soundproofing insulation under the carpet there in the baggage compartment, that the original screws were a little bit too short. In this video here, I'll manage to really press it down and get them to bite a little bit, but then I started finding they were kind of popping loose. So later on, I'll go back, I'll end up replacing these bolts, and I'll talk about it, I think, in another video too, but I'll end up replacing these screws with ones that are about another ½ inch longer because there's plenty of clearance underneath where these screw into, so you don't need to worry about getting them too long. So I'll just speed the video along here. At this point, you can kind of see not much to it at this point. Just get your hole lined up and then press this down into place and put your screws in, and the board's all done.
So funny story I'll share with you. When I was taking this apart, again, first airplane I've bought, had, taken apart, any of that. First thing that you do, obviously, is take all the big stuff out, like the seats. So, pop the seats out. And then I see all this back here. So, took the trim piece off that I'm putting on right now, and that came off fine. And then I was working on taking these guys out. And a few of the screws were stripping because they were old. And, you know, some it was the screw head that was stripping, and on other ones, it was a situation where the screw is turning, but it's just not coming out. And these are all flatheads, so there's nothing to grab a hold of. So, you know, I'm like, oh man, I got to get all this stuff out of here. I'm going to have to drill these out and all that. And what I thought, that I obviously know differently now, is that these were somehow like bolted into the airplane. What I didn't realize is that this is just a piece of plywood, and as soon as you take this bracket off that I'm putting in right now, this whole thing just slides out. So I was talking to my A&P, kind of explaining that I've got a few screws that are stripped, might need a little help getting some of those out. And I was talking about this piece in general, and I bumped it while I was working on it. And of course the whole thing just slid back. And then of course I had to laugh at myself because I then realized that this is all that holds it in. And these just hold the seats in, and they're screwed into those T-nuts on the back. This little guy doesn't want to go in here. Done. All right. These two end guys need a washer. Not sure what happened to those, so I'll get those and put those in later. But for now, this is in, that's done, that's locked in, that stuff will get trimmed down. Yeah. Let's see what some trim pieces look like in here. I think I like it. I think I like it a lot. Especially when the new seats get here. Which, still waiting for those. Hopefully soon. Yeah, so this is going to take a little bit of doing. Overall, the cut's pretty good, but not an exact fit. So, got a little work to do making all that fit. Oh, but I like it. Look at it. It smells like a new plane. I'm just going to sit here for a while, and I think that if I sit here long enough, this will all just fit itself in there. I'm almost certain that's the case. Yeah, I like it. What do you think? You guys like the color scheme? Seats are going to be the same color as this. It's, call it coal, basically black. It'll have the stitching will be this dove in the seats. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. Thumbs up. Don't like it. And you got any suggestions for putting this in here? I'm tired. But this is exciting. It's looking like an airplane again. I know. I gotta get back to work. I'm just gonna sit here for a minute. So, biggest thing with these is I have to find all the cutout holes, especially down in the foot panels where the air vents and things are. The fuel selector is up there, so I got to cut that out. But obviously I've got to get it pretty well lined up before I make that cut. Now I did put these up against the old carpet that was in here, and it was a pretty good match. So I think it lines up pretty well. But I don't want to just cut directly off of that. All right, I'm going to take all these back out of here and then take them one at a time and kind of work with those. Maybe I'll start with this one or this one. So, as I thought, I gotta trim this excess carpet. I just didn't want to trim it till I got this in here. I thought this was going to come down right to the edge, and it does. So I can clean that up now.
So here I'm just doing a lot of trial fitting with the side panels, just kind of making sure that things are going to line up where I want them to, see if there's anywhere that I need to trim carpet or realign anything like that. So I'll do that with all the side panels just to get a really good idea of what I need to do next as far as any trimming and getting everything lined up. I figure if I can get the back pieces lined up really well, and then that'll help me get the fronts lined up, because those are the ones that I'm going to have to cut. A lot of cutouts for air vents and other things. So just taking a minute to do all that, and then I'll pull this stuff back out and start making some cuts. The rear seats have headset jacks, one on each side. So these rear two wall panels, got to do cutouts, both of those. The wall panel itself, on the inside of it, they've actually removed the kind of hard plastic there. So there's a spot where they estimate that's going to go, and they made it a little bit oversized. But before I cut through the actual vinyl that's on the outside, I want to really try to make sure I've got these lined up. It's a little bit tricky with these because the wire's not very long, and so it's a little bit tough to work with that. So it's just a kind of a process, again, trial and error, just making sure I've got it all lined up right, measure twice, cut once kind of thing. So I'll take my time with that, make sure I've got them lined up, and make sure that I've got everything positioned where I want it, and that these are going to come through the wall panel exactly where I want them to. And then I'll make that cut on the vinyl. So the wall panels, you can see how they're kind of curved at the top. They curve over the top and hook into those little clips that are just at the base of the windows by the window trim there. So that kind of holds the tops on. The bottoms of the window trim kind of push down and the carpet pushes up against that. So that kind of holds it tight in place. And then what they normally do is you put some screws, some trim screws, down the sides of each panel. I couldn't bear the thought of putting screws through this nice vinyl. So, talked to my A&P about it a little bit, and I decided I'm going to try experimenting a little bit with some Velcro. So what I'm doing here is I'm putting some Velcro strips down the sides of the metal where the screws normally would go in. And the conversation that we had basically is that, at the end of the day, you just want to make sure this stuff is secure, it's not going anywhere. For the most part, those window clips, that holds it on there, and then the carpet holds it on there, so it's really not going anywhere. The sides, there might be just a little bit of play in that without the screws in it, but the Velcro kind of takes care of that. But definitely didn't think these were going to go anywhere. So I tested it out, and I'm happy to say it worked out really nice. So I did that with both of the wall panels in the back. Let the clips kind of hold it on the top. The carpet holds it tight against the bottom because the panels kind of push down slightly below the carpet and they kind of butt up against it. So they're kind of wedged in there in a sense. And then the Velcro just kind of gives it a nice fit so that there's no vibration or anything like that. So it seemed to work out pretty good and looks a lot nicer than screws. The other nice thing about doing the Velcro like this is I can get the side panel put on with those Velcro strips to really kind of hold it in place exactly where I know it's going to go before I cut out the hole for that audio jack that's back there. So I can see exactly where the jack's going to press through and make sure my hole's 100% lined up with the side panel exactly in its correct position. And then I can just kind of peel it back off and set it to the side, cut out the hole as I need to, insert the jack, and then press it right back up into place.
First cut in the leather. Oh my God, that was scary.
So the audio jacks aren't mounted against the metal frame. They're actually held in place on the wall panel itself. Basically, you have a face plate that's on the outside of the vinyl, and then you have another plate that's on the inside. So once I get it all secured in place, you just put the faceplate on the outside, that screws in against it, and there's an edge of the vinyl all the way around the perimeter that's kind of pinched in between those two. And that's actually what secures it in place. So that's what I'm doing now, is getting that all positioned up, and then I'll screw that down. Once that's in place, then I can just press the wall panel up into place, and that side is done. One down, 3 to go. So now I'm just going to repeat pretty much the same process for the rear panel on the other side. So I'll get in there, I'll put some Velcro strips vertically down the ribs. I'll do the same thing on the back side of the panel. And then I'll hook the panel over the top, push the bottom down into the carpet, and then press that flush up against the wall. I've also got another headset jack to cut out on that side. I've already made the cut at this point, so I just got to get that connected and push that up against the wall. Camera ran out of battery here toward the end, so you don't get to see the final install of this piece, but you'll see that it's installed as we pick up on the next day at the end of this little clip. So now with the rear two panels in place, I'll start working on the front. I'm going to start with the one over by the passenger door. The trickiest part about that one is getting a good fit up there by the window right next to the instrument panel. It's kind of a tight little fit there, but you kind of get that in place. What I found working with both of these panels is the key. You want to get it lined up as flush to the side as you can and positioned, as precise as you can to where it's going to go, so that you can work on cutting out the vent holes for each one. The best technique that I've found, because bear in mind, you've only got a small margin between the size of the hole opening and then the plastic cover that's going to go over it. So you don't want to make the hole too big. So the best technique I found is get it lined up as close as you can, and then make a very small hole. That way you can try to find the center of the opening that's behind it, and then slowly expand that hole. You can use the plastic cover that's going to go on there as kind of a guide for the maximum size of the hole, but expand the hole kind of slowly, making sure that as you kind of open it up, you're still staying on the center, and that way you won't make the hole too big, because the last thing that you want to do here is cut away too much material and then have a hole on the outside of your trim. So just take your time with it, make sure it's in position right, and center up that hole before you start making it too big. Moving over here to the side next to the pilot, in addition to the two air vents, you've also got the fuel selector valve down there. You'll have to take a lot of that cover off of there to kind of get this in there. But again, best technique here, start with the top, get those clips down just below the window frame, and that'll help you line it up really good. And then again, just take your time with all those holes across the bottom. Two things that will help you out on the back side of this. AirTex has already cut away part of that plastic, and that should line up fairly well with what you've got in the airplane. And also you can use the old wall panels as a guide, and it all should line up pretty close. But again, just start with your hole small until you're sure that you've got it in the right place, and then expand the hole to make that fit. And it should come out good. In addition, on this wall panel, you've also got that armrest. So I secured the armrest in place once I had started with those hole openings. That helps make sure that nothing's going to shift on me and that I've actually got it lined up right. Because if those holes are coming out right, then everything below that should work out right as well. Again, the holes for your armrest, those are pre-cut from Airtex, and they should line up pretty close. But again, just take your time with that, get everything lined up.
Well, guys, that was a long day, but really happy to say that the side panels are done. All the side panels are now in the airplane. All the carpet is in the airplane. You guys can take a look around in there a little bit. There's the floor. It's a little bit dark, it's starting to rain outside, and it's getting a little bit late in the day. But you can get a really good look at the airplane, how she's turning out. All that's left now are the trim pieces. That'll be an easy one after all of that. Whew. So the trim pieces, I have to do some repainting on that. I think I talked about that in a previous video. No fault of the paint shop. My own fault for not priming with a really light color the original trim pieces first. And because I didn't do that, the paint came out a little bit darker than it was supposed to. But that's an easy one. Let me know what you think. Thumbs up. You guys like the color? You like what I've done so far with the airplane? Let me know what you think, and if you've done stuff like this, share that as well. Love to hear about that. And yeah, love to see how your project is going if you got something like this going on. Also, if you notice, there's no screws. Normally there are some screws that are tacked along these pieces. You don't see any of that because I just couldn't bear the thought of putting screw holes in this nice finished wall panels. So what I did, the top of each of these, you can see it kind of curves around there. There's window clips that hold those in place. Those are original. That's the way it comes from the factory. And then normally what they would do is just put some extra screws along here to secure it. And what I did in the modern age is I've put Velcro strips down the sides, across the bottom, and it's locked it in place. I talked to my A&P about it to make sure that that sounded like an okay thing to do as far as it being airworthy and all that. And he agreed that as long as everything is secure, nothing's going to move. It's just cosmetic, that it should be okay. So I tried it out, and yeah, it locked everything down. I wasn't sure, if it'd be strong enough or if it would adhere well, but it did. Everything is really locked in well. So this piece, that rear piece there, it's basically Velcro along the sides and bottom, and then of course the window clips along the top that hold those in place. The front two panels on the left and right side, the one over there on the pilot side, in addition to the clips across the top, I got a little bit of Velcro right here just where that seam is, but mostly what's holding that in place, you've got an air vent there, an air vent there, then the fuel selector valve is there. Those are all bolted into the frame, as well as the armrest. So that all really is what holds that in place. Similarly, over here on the bottom, you've got an air vent. Those are screwed in. You've got this threshold here that runs the length of it. That's all screwed in, and that holds the top. And then on the door on the outside, that's been Velcroed to the door, and then also has a door handle that screws in. So none of that stuff is going anywhere. And I think it looks a lot nicer than having a bunch of little screws everywhere. So it kept a nice finish. Let me know what you guys think of that, if you ever done anything like that or not. But yeah, I think it's going to work out well. So pretty happy about that. This was a long day. It's been a long project, but I really like the way it's looking right now. And then in a few days, the paint should be mixed up, and I'll get those sprayed. I'll show you guys how I do that. I didn't film the first time, but I'll show you the second time the process in a little bit more detail. And then we'll put those in here, and hopefully soon the seats will be here. Let's hope. All right. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe.